Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show for you today. First, Bryan Kohberger. His attorneys filed a 350-page motion to support their change of venue request. Chris Watts is back in the news, and guess who he's blaming for the reason he killed his wife, unborn child, and 2 young daughters. Richard Allen's attorney's latest motion, should they probably just save it for cross-examination? We have an update on the Black Swan murder trial. More troopers are involved in the Karen Reed investigation. Well, guess what? They're under investigation. An Oregon judge is censured for being a little too helpful to her friends. And a teenager being tried as an adult. Well, guess what? Her trial is going to be televised. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
Hi, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do. Hit that little bell for notifications and leave me a comment. And remember, you can listen to us on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, today's show is brought to you by U.S. GoldTrust. Now, we all know and we're all experiencing inflation due to the current state of the economy. That leaves a lot of uncertainty in the value of the dollar. Now, if you're like me and you've been putting money away for retirement, have you thought about how far it will actually go? I know I do. Well, that's where U.S. GoldTrust comes in, and they can help reduce some of the risk of that uncertainty. Gold value is projected to hit an all-time high in 2024, with gold holding its value. It is a great investment. Now, there's a team of standing by to answer your questions and walk you through the easy process of rolling your 401k into precious metals if you think it's right for you. So check out the link in the description and learn about precious metals investing. Now, that link's going to take you to a page, and guess what? They're not going to try and sell you anything right away. You don't have to make a rush decision. Talk to them and see if it is a right decision for you. Only you can make that determination. Listen, I have gold. It is a great hedge against inflation. And, you know, when the power grid goes down, you think you're going to run to that ATM or the bank to get your money out? Not going to happen. Gold, something to think about. All right, let's go ahead and get to the docket today for July 24th, 2024. Now, first on the docket, Bryan Kohberger. Now, the attorneys for the accused quadruple murderer have requested a change of venue for his upcoming trial. Now, in that motion, it was filed Monday. We talked about it last night on our Tuesday night live program, and we went through all of the numbers. Basically, the gist of the motion is that Bryan Kohberger cannot receive a fair trial in Latah County because of the pervasive, inflammatory, and often inaccurate publicity and the small size of the jury veneer there in Latah County. Now, the attorneys are asking for the trial, currently scheduled for June of 2025, to be moved to Ada County, where Kohberger's team says that he can, in fact, receive a fair trial. It's not because people in Ada County haven't heard of the case. They just haven't followed it as closely. And obviously, there is a much greater jury veneer in which to pull from, and therefore that is why they want the request. Now, you may say, why do they need 350 pages? Well, most of that is exhibits. Most of it is exhibits from the police department themselves. They're investigating the matters. So the first was the Moscow Police Department press release. The motion for filing was under seal pending, but it does list live press releases and interviews, and those are going to be hand-delivered on July 22nd. Then they have the declaration of Dr. Edelman and his curriculum vitae. Once again, his report basically goes through all the numbers. I'm not going to go through all the numbers with you, but you can understand his position is that he explains the questions he asked, what it means in his analysis. We'll see if the prosecution, when they have the hearing on the change of venue, is going to have something to rebut the way Dr. Edelman did his survey, or they can rebut his conclusions. The question now is, will this be enough for a change of venue? I would say probably. The judge could always say, you know what, let's just see if we can't get a jury panel here in Latah County. And if not, then we'll move the case. I say move it now and just start the planning and start getting the money from the county board of officials that they need to get the money from so that they're ready to go when this trial is set next summer and we're actually going to go. So the prosecutors and the attorneys for Mr. Kohberger, they're expected back in court on August 29th to argue for that hearing or to argue for that change of venue motion at that hearing. We will bring it to you live and, of course, bring you unbiased analysis as well. All right. Next on the docket, Chris Watts. Chris Watts. Where do I know that name from? Oh, that's right. That's the guy that was just up the road who killed his wife, unborn child, and his 2 young daughters. Well, guess what? His cellmate, when he was in custody, is trying to monetize, make some money off of Chris Watts. And guess who Chris Watts is blaming for the reason why he now sits in custody and will never get out? That's right. He's blaming his former mistress for his decision to brutally murder his wife and 2 little girls. And in the letter that Mr. Watts sends to his pen pal buddy, former cellmate or next door cellmate, he only refers to the former mistress as Jezebel. I will explain. So, obviously, the former next door cellmate is writing a book. And so you got to sell the book. So he does interviews. And he's giving a teaser where he has shown several handwritten notes from Chris Watts, who is obviously serving at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin. In one letter dated March of 2020, Watts wrote a prayer of confession, and I quote, "The words of a Harlow have brought me low," he wrote. "Her flattering speech was like drops of honey that pierced my heart and soul. Little did I know that all her guests were in the chamber of death. How did I let this happen? The blessings you have bestowed upon me were right in front of me, and still I followed the perfume of a strange woman." Now, like I said, Watts shared most of his thoughts with Dylan Talman, the fellow prisoner at the Wisconsin lockup, who befriended Watts, and Talman was in the cell next to him, and they apparently became close friends. There were rumors that they were really close, but Mr. Talman, he's denied all that. Anyway, Mr. Talman was in prison for possession of narcotics when he met Mr. Watts, and although he served his sentence, he's now serving 4 months for a driving on the suspended license, which was a probation violation. Now, apparently the two began studying the Bible together, with Watts even calling Mr. Talman his spiritual twin. Now, like I said, some people had speculated that they were really good friends, but Mr. Talman flatly denies that allegation. Mr. Talman stresses that they were only studying the scriptures together. Well, apparently for more than a year, Watts had planned to write a book with Mr. Talman, but when Watts changed his mind, Talman has now released a series of 3 books titled The Cell Next Door. Parts 1 and 2 have apparently already been released and are available, and the 3rd installment is coming out today. Now, the book, which I have not read, apparently details how the lives of Watts and Talman intersected, and they discuss how they became friends through Bible study and deep conversation. Now, in his first book, Mr. Talman said he and Watts called Nicole Kessinger Jezebel as they talked about her, a reference to a biblical woman who, by her teachings, misled servants into sexual immorality. The book states, quote, "I was having an affair with this girl, and I ended up in love with 2 women at the same time," Watts allegedly told Mr. Talman. According to the book, it's what led up to what happened. She is of evil spirits, like Jezebel. So in the 1st and 2nd Kings book of the Bible, Jezebel was a wicked queen who turned the people away from God and convinced them to worship idols. Apparently, Mr. Watts admitted that he was stupid to cheat on his wife, and he asked for God's forgiveness every day for his infidelity. Mr. Talman asserts. Now, Watts claimed to Talman that Kessinger told him to choose between her and his family on the night of the murders. Jezebel was the forbidden fruit, he allegedly said, and it was costly. Now, Watts has admitted to strangling his pregnant wife, Shanann, in their home in August of 2018. He then drove her body to a job site for the oil company where he worked, and he dumped her body in a shallow grave. Now, his two daughters, Bella, who was 4 at the time, and Celeste, were in the truck. And he admitted that he drove by, and we've documented this. There were, I think, several hospitals, police stations, stores where he could have stopped, but no. He drove the young girls there, strangled them, and then put them into an oil tank, literally putting their little bodies through the top of an oil tank, probably no larger than this. So you can imagine what it took to get those young little bodies in there. Anyway, Watts pled guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the time of his case, the death penalty still existed in Colorado. It no longer does. And the Colorado prison officials soon arranged for him to be transferred to Wisconsin for his safety. Now, Miss Kessinger still lives in Colorado, but she goes by a different name. All those records have been suppressed by the courts. I tried to attend the hearing for Miss Kessinger's name change, and the judge told me that because of me, basically, she was going to hold the hearing not in public and seal all of those matters. So, such is life. Miss Kessinger's life goes on. Now, Miss Kessinger has not spoken publicly for several years about her relationship with Mr. Watts, nor does anyone expect her to in the future. Next on the docket, Richard Allen. That's right, the alleged Delphi murder suspect. Well, his attorneys have filed their 4th motion for a Franks hearing. A Franks hearing is when you say that the affidavit for the arrest warrant or search warrant was faulty, that either the officers lied or made statements that were made with reckless disregard, and there were material omissions from the affidavit. And if you pull out those false admissions or you plug in which was kept out, there would not be probable cause to exist. The defense for Mr. Allen has made several of these motions. The judge hasn't ruled on them yet, but they have a hearing coming up, so those will be ruled on shortly. The information now that is becoming known or apparent is a report that was turned over to the defense, and they're claiming some 14 months later that this report says that the phones found at the scene were actually removed from the scene and then returned back to the scene. And that if the judge had known about this, that there was basically this tampering of this crime scene, that the affidavit for the arrest warrant would never have been granted. Now the question becomes, when did the officers know it, right? This sounds like cross-examination information to me. Now you have to make a tactical decision. Yes, do you file the motion and make the appellate record, or do you save it for cross-examination? You have to know your judge. Now, obviously, this is a case with very serious sentence involved. So yes, you have to make the record, have it promptly denied, but then you have to embrace all of those bad things at trial and make the prosecution and the police look like they are hiding something. If a jury believes that the police were hiding something or they're acting unethically, guess what? They will be very skeptical of that information. They'll be skeptical of the prosecution. So I guess the defense is making this decision to file their motion to preserve it for any appellate issues, but they're going to lose. I truly believe they're going to lose. This judge has not granted a single motion other than the dress-out order in favor of Mr. Allen through this entire case. I don't think she's going to change now. So they've made the decision. Sometimes you got to go and make a tactical decision and say, we're not going to do this, and let the client know, you're okay with this, we're waiving this issue, but I think we're going to get more bang for our buck on cross-examination than we would litigating this issue in front of the judge, tipping the prosecution off. So we'll have to see. I don't think Judge Francis C. Gull is going to grant anything that the defense requests. Next, the Black Swan trial. We have an update. Now, a jury was seated Monday in the Ashley Benefield's murder trial, who obviously has been arrested and charged for killing her estranged husband, Doug Benefield. Now, she sat listening on Tuesday as her neighbor, John Sant, recalled back on September 27th of 2020 how he heard a loud pounding on his door, and it startled him. And when he opened the door, he found Ashley, who told him that her husband had attacked her. And then the jurors got to hear a portion of the 911 call that Mr. Sant placed. He stated that she just came over, her husband had attacked her, and she said that she shot him on the 911 call. Now, Ashley, who claimed she acted in self-defense that night, cried as the 911 recording was played in court. Now, as jurors were being walked through the timeline of Ashley and Doug Benefield's time together, his daughter Eva recalled how the two acted together after meeting through Doug's work. They were just all over each other, apparently. They were lovey-dovey everywhere, PDA, public displays of affection, all the time. They never let each other out of each other's sight, Eva said. Now, the two got married in South Carolina just 13 days after meeting each other back in 2016, and within a year of marriage, Doug, a retired naval flight officer, helped Ashley, a former ballerina, achieve her dream of starting a ballet company using his own money and contacts. He also had his vasectomy reversed, and Ashley became pregnant within 3 months. But the assistant state attorney, Susan O'Donnell, prosecuting the case, said that that is when everything changed. Ashley moved to Florida after learning she was pregnant and began fighting for sole custody of their child, accusing Doug of abuse, which no judge ever found those allegations credible. About the same time the ballet collapsed, Ashley started complaints against the victim, the prosecutor noted, and prosecutors said she made complaints that she was poisoned and claimed that there was a domestic violence taking place. Once again, all unfounded. Prosecutors argued that the killing was a last-ditch effort to gain custody of their daughter, who was 2 at the time. Now, the attorneys for Ashley Benefield claimed that no, that's not the case, that she, in fact, feared her husband. Doug Benefield knew full well on that day that the relationship was over, but yet he was over there. Anyway, O'Donnell said that Doug worked at all odds to save their family, while Ashley had no intention of doing so as well. Doug was killed while in Florida, helping Ashley move her and their daughter belongings to Maryland, where the couple planned to live separately but in the same state. So really what the prosecutors are arguing is that this is really a story about a custody battle gone wrong, where obviously Doug wound up dead. Next, Karen Reed. Did her case just get better? Well, 2 troopers working on the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office staff are under internal investigation. A 3rd trooper was also investigated, and those allegations have been classified as unfounded. Now, as you may know, Miss Karen Reed was charged in the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe in Canton, Massachusetts. Her first trial ended in a hung jury earlier this month, and a new trial date has been set for January of 2025. Now, the case is being investigated by troopers assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Well, the Massachusetts State Police confirms that Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully, Lieutenant John Fanning, and Sergeant Yuri Buckhennick are each the subject of an active internal investigation. The department respectfully declines further comment in fairness to the integrity of the process and pending investigation outcomes. The troopers remain on full duty at this time. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's not good when all of your witnesses, investigators, are under investigation for alleged misconduct. Like I said, a lot can happen in the Karen Reed case. A trial is not set until January of next year. That is an eternity in the criminal law world between now and trial. So much can happen. So many things can change. We're going to have to wait and see. Next, a judge gets censored for being a little too helpful to her friends. So a county circuit court judge in Oregon has agreed to be censured after she intervened on behalf of a personal friend in 2 cases. That includes a homicide 2 years ago outside of Bend, Oregon. Now, the censure of Judge Bethany Flint involves incidents in 2020 and 2022, according to the censure document. Now, the first incident was from September 14th of 2020. The censure documents state that Flint had spoken with a personal friend about the process to obtain a restraining order and walked the friend through that process. Flint was not the issuing judge on that particular case because that would be totally unethical. After attending the hearing, the friend told Judge Flint that she felt she had been treated poorly by the issuing judge. And in a conversation a week later with Judge Flint, the issuing judge asked Flint how she handled petitions that appeared to lack credibility. Flint was able to determine that this was about the case involving her friend, and Flint then vouched for her friend's credibility and told the issuing judge her friend felt she had been treated poorly. Flint then complained to the county's presiding judge about the issuing judge's tone during that hearing, and also wrote an opinion letter about the issuing judge in a different restraining order case. The second incident happened on October 9th of 2022, involving the death of a 70-year-old by the name of Leonard Raymond Pevereri at a home just east of Bend, Oregon. Now, Flint received a call from someone informing her that Pevereri's death and that the police were going to question his spouse, who was a friend of the judge. Judge Flint entered the home and saw the law enforcement officers inside. She intervened in the conversation with law enforcement more than once, and when her friend indicated she wanted a lawyer, Flint ended the questioning and told the detectives an attorney needed to be present. Well, the judge informed the county's presiding judge the next day about the interaction with the detective at the scene. She also reported the incident to the Oregon Commission of Judicial Fitness and Disability. The commission determined Flint violated several rules of the Code of Judicial Conduct, including that a judge shall not use the judicial position to gain personal advantage of any kind for the judge or any other person. Now, Flint consented to the censure, and the document was signed by the Bend Mayor, Melanie Kerbler, who is the chair of the Oregon Commission on Judicial Fitness and Disability. Now, though Flint and the Oregon Commission of Fitness and Disability have agreed to the public censure, the matter will still need to be approved by the Oregon Supreme Court to make sure it is appropriate. Of course, they will. It was an agreed upon stipulation, unless the Supreme Court goes rogue and says, no, that is too soft. She needs to be removed from the bench. But it just shows you, ladies and gentlemen, judges, you need to call balls and strikes. I've had judges tell me that being a judge is the loneliest job in the world. You have your good friends who will never be able to appear in front of you again. You have other acquaintances and friends that distance themselves so that they can appear in front of you in the future. And basically, you can't talk shop. You can't give legal advice to anyone because you're a judge. You're not a private attorney at that point. So it is a world where judges just need to keep their mouth shut and don't get involved unless it is a matter before them. Next, a teenager charged as an adult. Well, the trial is going to be televised. So 14-year-old Carly Gregg was charged as an adult with the murder of her mother by the Rankin County prosecutors down in Mississippi, and was taken to the Rankin County Adult Detention Center on a $1 million bond. Now, there was a hearing just yesterday as to whether media outlets will be allowed in the courtroom and be allowed to televise the proceedings. Now, Ms. Gregg's attorneys presented an argument that media access would impact the jurors unfairly. That request was not granted by the judge presiding over the case, and he said these proceedings will remain open. Also, the judge decided that Gregg would remain in custody at the adult facility following an interest of justice hearing in his courtroom. Now, prosecutors allege that Carly Gregg shot Ashley Smiley twice in the face, once below the chin on March 19th, before inviting a friend over to come take a look at the body. Now, Smiley, the mother, taught at the high school that her daughter attended, teaching math. Now, Smiley's husband, Heath Smiley, told police that when he got home, he found Ashley on the bedroom floor and Gregg was in the kitchen. He said that that's when she aimed the gun at him and shot him in the shoulder. Now, charges against Gregg, who's actually now 15, is also charged with murder and attempted murder. Now, Gregg's attorney, like I said, argued that the defendant's age and the fact that the minors are expected to testify should preclude the media and the public from being present at trial. But the judge says, oh, no, 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 no. He said, let me make this very clear. This is the public's courtroom. The people in Rankin County own this courtroom, not this judge, nobody else. The court's not going to exclude the public. The judge swiftly quashed concerns that publicity would somehow bring unwanted attention to the people who will eventually sit on the jury. He emphasized that members of the jury will remain anonymous and will not be photographed or recorded. Their names will remain sealed and their identities will remain anonymous unless they decide on their own to step forward. The judge stated that he will do everything in his power to ensure the open, public, and fair trial. And he addressed several other motions as well, including the defense's ongoing position that Ms. Gregg be moved to a juvenile facility. She's currently being held at an adult detention facility. That request was also denied, and Ms. Gregg will remain held at the adult facility on a $1 million bond. And the judge reminded everybody that he's waiting on the doctor's mental evaluation of Miss Gregg, which is due next week. And the judge also noted that she will be able to dress out and that she will not have visible restraints when the jury is in front of her. It's going to be an interesting trial, ladies and gentlemen. And I like this judge. He gets it right. It's not his courtroom. It's the people's courtroom, and they have a right to know what takes place in their courtroom to see if justice is being done. Are the prosecutors competent? Is the defendant receiving a fair trial? Is the judge up there calling balls and strikes, or is he being biased or prejudiced in one way or the other? Hats off to the judge. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. How many times have I said it's always about the money, ladies and gentlemen? It's always about the money. Let me give you an example. Please meet Molly Rose Hagan. She was arrested because the male victim were engaged in a prenuptial quarrel late Sunday night at their home in St. Petersburg. Now, the victim told police when they arrived that Miss Hogan grabbed him around the head, struck him on the chest, torso, back, and legs, causing multiple physical injuries. The attack, the man said, was prompted by a heated argument over signing a prenuptial agreement prior to the marriage. See, it's always about the money, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, the male victim told the police that he attempted to escape from the defendant multiple times and that he was ultimately separated from Miss Hogan by witnesses who corroborated his account of the incident. Now, police allege that one witness, victim's brother, was also bitten on the arm by Miss Hogan as he sought to stop her from beating her future husband. Apparently, alcohol was a factor as this all took place at about 11:30 p.m. The arrest affidavit does not offer up a whole lot of additional information regarding the prenuptial agreement dispute, other than apparently somebody didn't want to sign the prenuptial agreement. Well, the wedding was scheduled for Saturday, July 27th. Unclear if that is still going to go, as guess what? The judge issued a protection order that she can have no contact with her future husband. That was a condition of her personal recognizance bond. She was allowed a one-time visit to the residence with the officers assisting her to retrieve her personal belongings, but it doesn't sound like she can get married. But if you would like to donate, the wedding registry remains online, welcoming friends and family to join their epic journey. I would say it is off to one heck of a start. The registry seeks primarily cash gifts to help pay for the table centerpieces, a wedding cake, flowers, and an open bar at these festivities. Somehow I'm not sure that's going to take place anytime soon. Obviously, Ms. Hogan and her maybe potential future husband, maybe ex-fiance, can do what they desire, but I'm going to go on a limb here saying that if you guys are fighting like this before you're even married, cut it off. Future husband, run like a hotel fire. And I don't know what you've got that's worth a prenuptial agreement. I don't know if this is like a truck, maybe some property, but you know, when you get to the divorce, it's going to be easy. What's hers is hers and what's yours is hers. So just remember that. It doesn't really matter, but it's always about the money. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. Hey, remember, the Constitution matters. We'll see you tomorrow.